Well, one thing's for certain, they sure don't make them like they used to. Taxi Chaos, the spiritual successor to the Crazy Taxi franchise, has finally been released, and I've had a chance to play through it. And being a huge fan of the original Crazy Taxi series, I really was looking forward to Taxi Chaos, but of course, now here we are. After I played it, here are my thoughts. And just like my previous reviews, I'm going to break it up into the good, the bad, and the final thoughts. The good news is that the developer, Lion Castle Entertainment, tried to do a good job of recreating the essence of Crazy Taxi. And they did a good job in a lot of respects in recreating the overall feel of Crazy Taxi. It's got simple, easy to learn gameplay, pick up and play, good arcade fun. There's plenty of cars to unlock, which is really cool. There's only 2 characters, but there's several different cars that have different attributes like overall top speed, boost, acceleration, etc. There's also a free roam mode, which is great for learning the city layout, so you can actually know where the destinations are instead of just following the silly little arrow on the top of your screen. And that about wraps it up for the good stuff. Now it's on to the bad stuff. To start off with, the game only runs at 30 frames per second on the Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and Nintendo Switch. This is just unacceptable, and it's sad, because there are far better looking games that run at a smooth 60 frames per second. Like for example, on the Xbox One you have Dirt 4, Killer Instinct, Gears 5, all these games look fantastic and run at a smooth 60 frames per second. Not to mention Sega 20 years ago came out with Crazy Taxi 1 originally, and that ran at a full 60 frames per second unbroken. So there's really no excuse for a modern developer to have a modern game not have good graphics and still run at a 30 frame per second frame rate. That's just sad. If you play the original Crazy Taxi games, you would know that The Offspring and Bad Religion are the soundtrack for those games, and they're so good. They add a ton to the experience, and it's just amazing whenever you go to play them. And it makes me sad to say that the music in this game is nowhere near as good as those songs. In fact, it's nowhere near as good as any other game's music, for that matter. It's just repetitive, dull, lifeless, and it's just, there's nothing to it. If you didn't see my previous video already, I did actually put a song, All I Want from The Offspring, into Taxi Chaos, and it makes the experience 100 times better. Still a bad game, but the music's good. There are no advanced techniques in Taxi Chaos, so like in Crazy Taxi you had drifts, and the longer you kept your drift going, the more tips you got from your customers. Taxi Chaos doesn't have drifts at all. Like, your car turns super fast, left, right, like there's no strategy. It's just like, it can turn on a dime. So drifts are unnecessary, and they're not even in the game. So there you go. Also in Crazy Taxi, you could do a boost where if you tap the brake and then tap the accelerator, it'll do a little boost, and you can do that in the middle of a drive, and that's kind of a good way to get your speed going. And it's a pretty advanced technique, so new players are going to have a hard time getting that pulled off successfully. And there's also the quick stop, so if you jam the accelerator and then press the brake, it'll do a quick stop, so you can just like stop on a dime at your location, and it's really cool. Taxi Chaos doesn't have any of those things. It's just you have acceleration, you have this generic boost where you have to hold down both triggers for a couple of seconds and then let go, and it gives you a boost, but it requires no skill, and there is no quick stop. To the best of my knowledge, I didn't see anything about it. I couldn't figure out a way to do it, so just hold down the brake and just wait for it to stop. Or you can run into something, that'll stop your car too. The little conversations you have with your customers after you pick them up are so annoying. They're so annoying. It's the same thing over and over and over and over again. Be prepared to hear the same conversation multiple times. Seriously, like one time playing through this game, if you start an arcade mode, you're probably going to be finished in the first 3 to 5 minutes, and be prepared to hear the same conversations multiple times. Most of the people are either going to talk about retiring in an old folks home, or they're going to be on their way to work, and then you're going to mention something about a cloud of resentment. It's just like, really? That's the best conversations you can come up with? Is 2 different conversations, and both of the cab drivers that you have available to choose from in Taxi Chaos have the exact same conversations with all the customers. It's so annoying and pointless. Like, I would almost rather they just didn't talk at all. The city that you drive around in Taxi Chaos is a kind of a slimmed down version of New York City. You can tell it's supposed to be New York without it explicitly saying so, but the problem is that it seems very dull and lifeless when compared to the New York City representation in Crazy Taxi 2, which was far better and far more expansive. I almost wish they went with a whole different location, like a mountain town, or just something completely different from the Crazy Taxi series, because that way we wouldn't have a direct comparison and see how bad Taxi Chaos really is. There are no mini-game modes featured in Taxi Chaos. Like in Crazy Taxi, you have these modes where you have to like plow through the bowling pins and all kinds of crazy stuff. In this game, you just have the arcade mode, which is just the standard arcade mode that is present in Crazy Taxi, and then you have the pro mode, but the only difference between the two is that the pro mode eliminates your arrow, so you have to remember where all these locations are. So that's about it. That about wraps up this short review. Taxi Chaos, I wasn't expecting very much, and it was pretty much what I was expecting. Just not good at all. The best thing I can say about Taxi Chaos, though, is that it reminded me how great Crazy Taxi is, and it made me want to play that even more. And to be perfectly honest, for the price point, you can purchase the original Crazy Taxi right now for $10, which is a third of the price of Taxi Chaos, and you're going to get a much, much better deal. So at the end of the day, if you have a Dreamcast and you still have your copy of Crazy Taxi, pop that in and give it a shot, because Taxi Chaos, it ain't it. But thank you very much for watching up to this point. I do appreciate it. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you again soon.